Let me ask a question. Have you ever loved something with your whole heart and had to get up and just walk away from it? Maybe a job, a house, a family. All-time great Lou Gehrig, Yankee great Lou Gehrig, did on July 4th, 1939 by giving his now world-famous speech, The Luckiest Man on the Face of the Earth. Gehrig gave his heart out for the New York Yankees, but at the end of the day, it was time to hang up his cleats. This topic is relevant because Lou Gehrig was a world-famous baseball player who was diagnosed with ALS. It was a very unwell-known disease back in the day. Gehrig was the face of the New York Yankees at the time and had to say goodbye to a franchise that he grew up with and eventually ended up playing for. Henry Louis Gehrig, aka Lou Gehrig, was born June 19th, 1903 in New York. His family was from Germany. They came over before he was born, but they didn't have a lot of money. His dad worked in the metal company. His mom, she was a cook, she would clean, she pretty much did everything around the city. And like I said, they didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so Lou found baseball at a very young age. At 5 years old, he found baseball and ended up playing baseball, throughout high school, and then ended up going to Columbia for both football and baseball. But by his sophomore season at Columbia, he got picked up. Back then, they didn't really call it the draft like they do now, like getting drafted by a team. He got picked up by the Yankees. And the 1923 and 1924 season, he played in Hartford, Connecticut for their minor league team. And then 1925, he got called up, but was actually the backup to the first baseman at the time. And kind of a funny story here is that first baseman, he had a headache one day. And Lou Gehrig, he was the backup, had the headache. So the manager sat him and put Lou Gehrig in. And Lou Gehrig ended up going 4 for 5 on the day and just kind of became the starter. And he went on to play 2,130 games, consecutive games, as a Yankee, which was the all-time record till 1995 when Cal Ripken Jr. broke it with 2,632 games. So, I mean, that's crazy alone. He helped the Yankees win 7 AL pennants and 6 World Series, and he was also a 7-time All-Star while he was on the Yankees. And so yeah, he was a New York great. He grew up in New York. He loved the city loved him, and all was going well, right? So one day, June 19, 1939, him and his wife Eleanor went to the Mayo Clinic just for a visit, just for a checkup. And while they got there, they got terrible news that Lou had been diagnosed with ALS. Now, ALS wasn't very well known back then, right? It was like kind of a new disease and not a lot of people were getting it. But what ALS is ALS is a progressive nervous system disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord, causing loss of muscle control. So pretty much once you get diagnosed with ALS, you start losing feeling, and then you start getting in a wheelchair and stuff like that. And then eventually, it will kill you. Like, not that it can, it will, at the end of the day. So, the doctor told Lou that he was like, your career's pretty much done, dude. Like, there's really nothing you can do. So on July 4th, 1939, Lou Gehrig gave his now famous speech, basically addressing Yankee Stadium at the time, and had to say goodbye. Now, me as a baseball player, and I could not imagine getting diagnosed with something and the doctor telling me, it's time to hang up the cleats. Like, I could not imagine it. So I could imagine he was very emotional, and he grew up in New York. He was a New York kid. He was a New York guy and stuff like that. And so Gehrig started off the speech by talking about how lucky he was. He states, "For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bread break. Yet today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. I've been in ballparks for 17 years and have never recognized anything but kindness and encouragement from your fans." Now, he starts off the speech by thanking everyone. Like I said, I'm a college baseball player. I've met pro baseball players before. I've met Division I college baseball players, and the overall that we can talk about is just how grateful we are. Times can get stressful, times can be fun, but at the end of the day, you're playing a kid's game, and it's like sometimes you push yourself away from that and you forget that. So he just wanted to thank everybody. He's like, wow, the experiences on this were great, and 17 years in the league, and he got to travel all over the country and play the game that he grew up loving. Right? And not everyone gets to travel around the country getting to do what they love. So he's talking to the fans, and he also talks about the people that's helped support him, such as his mother and, his wife, Eleanor. He says, when you have a father and a mother who work all their life so you can have an education and build your body, it's a blessing. When you have a wife who has a tower of strength and shown more courage than you dreamed existed, that's the finest I know. And I know for me, sometimes I get emotional because my parents, they're my biggest supporters easily. Like, when I have a bad day or when I'm having a bad week or something, I know I can talk to my mom and she'll always be there, And he talks about how his parents made sacrifices and how he lived out his dream and stuff like that. He's basically giving him a huge thank you, He could have made that whole thing about him, like how the accomplishments he accomplished and stuff like that. But instead he took the time to thank the fans, thank his parents and all of this, which to me shows a sign of courage. It shows a sign that he really took. He probably let it digest at first, but then he took a step back and he was just grateful, and that's all you can be. And then he ended up finishing the speech by saying, "So I close in saying that I might have been given a bad break, but I got an awful lot to live for. Thank you." And he's talking about just everything that's came with baseball and with his wife Eleanor and with his parents. Although he probably knows that he doesn't have a lot of time left, he's saying thank you to everybody, and he's saying that how grateful he is that he has met those amazing people and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, Lou Gehrig, great baseball player. Like reading his stats, he was a phenomenal baseball player. And Cal Ripken Jr. beat his record for most consecutive games in 1995, and he set that record in 1935. It took that long to break the record. He was a great player, but obviously his career was cut short. But the speech, to me, like when I was reading it for the first time, I was getting goosebumps, and it was because I couldn't imagine in my shoes having to step away from the game like that. And just truly inspiring to read the speech. So yeah, thank you for listening, and this is Eric Perry.